Hello everybody, welcome back to Movie Master, where we rank, review, trailer react, and talk more news about movies, TV shows, and video games. Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. I realize I haven't posted, it's been a bit of a while since I last posted, but I thought, hey, why not post again? This would be finally doing my Amazing Spider-Man rewrites that I've been wanting to do for a while. But there's actually a few things I want to do in between. This little video is an in-betweener to lead up to the rewrite video, which is the next video that will be uploaded to the channel. Now this is my TESM 1 recap video. Now I do think my original rewrite was a bit incoherent and hard to understand, so this video will recap it so that you guys can understand what the hell I was trying to say in this video, but it'll be much more shorter and not as condensed. Basically, here's what's going to happen. Pretty much, well, Harry, a few of the things that be changed is the Peter Parker plotline, the parents plotline will be the major plot point of this movie. The origin story will be a second plotline, and the third one will be the lizard one. Harry Osborn will indeed be referenced in this film as a friend of Peter's, and also the one who dated Gwen in science class, but he left to go to England. In actuality, he did go to a private boys' school, but he left because of his father being sick, so yeah. Along with that, he was also Gwen's science partner, and Peter and Gwen are well aware of each other. They have a very argument, childish bond they have with each other, but they don't really bother going anywhere with their relationship. Sorry. A few other things that we changed throughout the script, the film. One thing being mainly is Uncle Ben's death. Uncle Ben, there was indeed an alternate shot Uncle Ben death scene when he, where it's pretty much the same scene. Peter just argues with the shop clerk, then he leaves, and then after that, Uncle Ben gets gunned down in the alleyway, and eventually, yeah, he gets gunned down, and he sees some people getting bothered in the alleyway, and thinks it's Peter, who goes to investigate and gets shot. And then Peter sees it, and a lot of the deleted scenes will be mostly added back in. All the alternate shot scenes will be added back in. And in the opening scene of the film where Peter's walking through his high school, we indeed see him pass by a girl who asks to take a picture of her boyfriend's car. That will indeed now become Liz Allen, making her cameo in this film. She will need not be any love interest towards Peter, just a girl that Peter meets into. And while Flash Thompson is being a kid and forces them to eat, Peter doesn't intervene, because the first time he sees it's a different kid. The next time when he's walking through and takes a picture of Liz, and then sees Gwen and bothers not to thinks about taking a photo. He then sees another kid getting bullied, so Peter goes and intervenes and then gets beat up gets punched in the face and gets beat up by Flash Thompson like he does in the real film. Another thing, Peter and Gwen, like I said, are partners in science, and the reason Peter does go to Oscorp is mainly because, well, they have a project they need to do there. There's a project they're doing together, and Gwen says that he can come over to Oscorp if he wants to help finish it. And so, yeah, and so he decides to go over. And after learning a bit about his parents, he realizes that, well, why not try and go there to see Dr. Connors? So he goes there, looks around, and after really looking around and then meeting up with Gwen, he runs into Dr. Connors, and then meets and chats with them, and then sees them for a little bit, runs into Dr. Raja Yalf, who drops a bunch of files. He sees them and looks at them, but just doesn't really bother on them. And while doing this, he walks around a bit until finally a spider, which was in his dad's suitcase that crawled up into his jacket sleeve, crawls it up by his neck and bites him on the back of the neck. Not feeling so well, he asks Gwen, hey, my aunt's calling me, I need to leave, using it as an excuse, so he leaves and goes on the train ride home. Now, the train scene where he accidentally beats up all the people is good. I think the only problem is, in the actual film, anytime he actually hits a person, it keeps cutting the black for a second, it keeps going, and keeps cutting the black like this. Imagine if it went... And imagine if I punched somebody and it cut the black. So every time I punched something, it went to black. Even if it was off screen when he punched or kicked somebody, it kept cutting the black for no reason. So I'll cut all those little cut the black things because it kind of broke up the fight. Instead, the Amazing Spider-Man films always had really good practical action in the first film, but they were so heavy on trying to make it changing angles and all that, they removed what made it such, just keeping the final one shot. Although the Raimi films, the CGI was aged, the fighting was good because it only changed angles when it needed to. It stayed on one angle for an entire part of the fight, and only changed sides, and it only changed alterated where they were positioned, angles basically, alterated the angles, just to capture that part of the fight. Whereas the Amazing Spider-Man films, when it was getting edited, the editors decide to chop up pieces of the fights and make them look very clunky. Even the scenes when there's no action and just talking, they won't stop shifting the camera. They'll go from one side to the next to the next. So imagine I'm talking to you like this. They'll jump from here to here to here to here and have a need to jump all over where I'm positioned. That's what normal movie, some of the scenes in the film seem to do. Even in the web swinging scenes, it would never stay on one focus shot. The only time when they stayed on one focus shot for web swing was the Amazing Spider-Man's final swing scene. And yeah, besides that, another thing is that the training montage where Peter moves around on the skateboard will be much longer, because there was actually stunt rehearsals I looked at behind the scenes on the DVD showing that actuality, while the film was being made, there was a cut scene where Peter would move across and move around and flip over these forklifts, go under them, dive under tables, jump over them, run on tables. It was all cut. So instead, my version would be much more longer, sampling more music from Coldplay's Till Kingdom Come, showing him doing skateboard stuff, lifting up boxes, lifting up one box, lifting up two crates, now trying to balance a forklift. And it would show him trying to climb up this big long metal contraption, and when he climbs it, he tries to hold onto it, then falls down. Then when he climbs up and makes it successfully the first time, he grabs it and then it collapses and he lands on his back, and it really hurts. That was actually a cutscene when Peter grabs onto a piece of metal and tries to grab onto another bar and then falls off, because that's how loose it is. And then it will cut to him doing it again, but he successfully does it and then uses the change to web swing around. Overall, that's what I'll change about that particular scene. Another note is that, well, only in the crane sequence during the final battle, well, not final battle, lead up to the final battle, Peter obviously needs to get from where he is to Oscorp, but he's dearly injured after being shot by Captain Stacy's men. And another thing is that the first-person shots that were in the film, there were a few first-person shots I think they cut down a bit. One of them was when Peter, for the first time we would see his suit, they don't really show us all of the suits, so there is actually in the trailers an entire scene of their first-person shot showing, but they cut it down due to just wanting to. I'll put that back in, and we'd see a lot more first-person shots, because this makes you feel more like you are Spider-Man, and I really do. I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to make you feel like, yeah, you're Spider-Man. You can feel like you're the guy running around buildings, jumping off places, doing all this amazing cool stuff. And they just put you in that kind of place for a few minutes and then pulls you back out to show you the rest of his body. And we'd see a lot of those. One of them is during the chase scene from Captain Stacy. We would see him do that a lot of it. And we'd see him do first-person shots for fighting the lizard. We'd see first-person shots where he's doing the crane sequence. We'd cut in and out of that. So yeah, and it would still be the same setup of sequences that the kid who Spider-Man rescued on the bridge, his dad, after all, wants to save him. So he lines up the cranes so that Peter can swing on the cranes. And yes, like in the original film, he falls off, fails, but then gets caught by one crane. So he swings past about two buildings, then latches onto another crane, and swings past two more buildings, then swings past a third crane, and then swings past four more buildings, then lands on the final crane and then gets up to Oscorp Tower and whips all the way up to the top of the building like in the film, but only 4 cranes, because the fact that there's like 9 or 8 or 7 or 9 cranes is insanely unrealistic and just... yeah. And it makes it seem more inspirational. And whilst Peter's swinging over via every crane, we cut in between that. Right as he's about to do that, Lizard is now hunting down Dr. Raja Yelth, the Indian or African scientist that was in the Amazing Spider-Man 1. Now, in the original film, the last we see of him is getting dangled off a bridge. Now, there were deleted scenes where he dies, but I'll change that because, well, there's many deleted scenes. One of them in particular is when Peter and Lizard are fighting. He escapes, and then it's a deleted scene though. Peter finds Connors back in his weakened state, so Peter, using his trust, picks him up and takes him back to his laboratory, and finds him in his laboratory taking gear. And when they get to talking a bit, and Peter realizes that, yeah, Connors wants to make the world a better place, so he decides that he wants to turn everyone into a lizard to achieve it, to try and make everyone perfect and better. But the serum won't work at all. It will either turn them into lizards or kill them. It will drastically alter their DNA so much that our bodies won't be able to handle it and they'll die. Peter, not wanting that to happen, tries to stop him, but after that, Dr. Rajiel and two Oscorp guards shoot him. After this, Raja Yelth then sprays a little sedative on him to relax Peter, and then he tells him that there's more to your powers. Instead of saying that, well, do you really think your powers were an accident? He would say, do you know why your parents disappeared? Well, I guess you wouldn't. And then he would hint at the fact that, well, do you know how special your powers are? And then Peter shocked looks, and then he leaves and tells the guys to pick him up. So while he's leaving, one of the guys gets knocked aside, and then he knocks Peter over and then bites off one of the guards' heads. To keep Raja Yelth alive, as I really do think he could play a better part in the later half of the film. After that, we then see it cut to a later part of the film. Now we're back at Oscorp Tower in a later bit of the film. So this is may jump a bit around the movie, but now we're back when Peter's now swinging to Oscorp Tower. Whilst Gwen has been now evacuating the building, looking for a cure for Connors, Raja Yelth is in Dr. Connors' office and accessing files on his information. Eventually, Raja Yelth realizes that the lizard was Connors, and eventually Connors breaks into the building and starts looking for him. So Connors checks Raja's office and then his old office, which is where Raja Yelth was hiding. Eventually, he tracks him down, but then Gwen uses the serum that she concocted that Lizard did early in the film. She made it herself and then threw two of them at him and then started running. Well, no, whilst this was happening, and after throwing those, she snags the Ganali device and then runs off. With that, Lizard runs through a few buildings trying to find out where Dr. Raja Yelth is after he ran off after getting distracted by Gwen. Gwen would keep trying to run away from Lizard and eventually hide in the cellar. And when Lizard's about to go get the Ganali device, Captain Stacy shows up and with a few officers and starts shooting at him. And then eventually he runs away but steals the gun, runs away and fails to get the Ganali device. Whilst trying to get it, he sees Raja Yelth and is nearly about to kill him, but Captain Stacy would see that and start shooting at him. So he would decide to try and push Raja Yelth out of the building, and Peter, who has just got into the building after using the cranes, would jump down and save Yelth and then put him back down on the ground and then whip back up to the top of the building. Whilst this is happening, Connors would then find the Ganali device, was nearly harming Gwen, threatening to kill her, throws her back to Captain Stacy, runs off and goes to the rooftop. Loading in the Ganali device with a deadly lizard virus, he decides Gwen finds the cure while running out of the building with the dad, and the dad realizes that and takes and asks for the serum, gives it, and doesn't reveal he knows who Peter is. Because in my version, whilst Peter's getting arrested by the SWAT team, he knocks them over, but Captain Stacy doesn't see him. He flips the mask and puts it back on right before the light shined on him. But he does convince him in the same way that he has to let him go, that his daughter is at Oscorp right now, and then he runs off going to save her, and he's still shot in the crane scene happens and everything. Now we're all caught up. Lizard is now loading up the Ganali device, so Peter must now stop him. The Ganali device has about a 10-minute limit before you can disable it. You can roughly disable it because Richard Parker earlier, Peter had found papers and finding out that the Ganali device that from the papers that Peter found, he found out that the Ganali device that Richard used indeed had a 10-minute time limit. So if you want to disable it, it would need 10 minutes. And right now, the 10-minute timer had just started. So there was a fail-safe to turn it off. Peter just needed to click the button and then disable it. But if the 10 minutes were already gone, well, yeah. So this meant Peter was on the clock, now trying to disable the machine. So with that, Peter starts to fight the lizard the same way, Lizard throws him off the building, they slam into a few things, then Peter hides away from Lizard trying to surprise attack him, and then tries to hop up on the tower, but when Lizard throws a nitrogen gas tank at him, he gets knocked out of the air, lands on the ground, and when he's trying to flip to get a nitrogen pipe, Lizard picks him up, crushes his web shooters, walks him to the edge of the building, breaks his web shooters, and then pulls off his mask and throws it to the side, and then threatens Peter Parker in the same vein, until eventually Captain Stacy shoots him, and then Lizard throws Peter nearly off the building. Luckily, due to Peter's enhanced abilities, he's able to cling on to the building's parts, and then climbs back up, kicks the Lizard, then slides under his legs, whips, and then kicks the Lizard, and then luckily, due to the distraction of the Lizard covering his where he's jumped up to, he flips the mask back, he gets the mask, puts it back on, slides under Lizard's legs, kicks him near the groin, and then grabs a little liquid nitrogen hose that Captain Stacy fired and leaks it around Lizard. He takes it, sprays it at Lizard, and then gets Lizard to come by him. He sprays it on him and then kicks him back into the tank, and then lets him go in there. And then Captain Stacy gives him the little antidote. So Peter runs up there and then goes to disable the device. Whilst that, he tells Captain Stacy to run and to let him distract the Lizard. So he does. After taking the shot, he throws the gun at his face, and then after that, runs. With that, Peter goes all the way up to the tower. With that, Lizard's now following in pursuit. Eventually, Peter gets it, disables the machine, and then drops it. Right as Lizard grabs onto him, he disables the device and drops it into the pit of liquid nitrogen. After it bonks Lizard on the head, it barely scrapes past his arm, and it lands in the little pool of big, huge cover area of liquid nitrogen. Peter takes the antidote, pushes the button, and then shoves it into Lizard's neck and injects him with it. And after that, well, Lizard is then cured. With that, the Lizard then falls, and then obviously he crashes down because at the core of it, the tank that Lizard had thrown earlier had indeed frozen the tip of where the core and the bottom little area of where the antenna was, and so it starts falling. Luckily, he's caught by the Lizard still. The Lizard's arm collapses, and luckily, yeah. Now, yes, Captain Stacy does indeed live. Like I said in my original rewrite, Captain Stacy does live in this movie. He does not die. And like I said, a lot of the deleted scenes are restored in this one. The scene with Billy, Dr. Connor's son, and Dr. Connors himself speaking is put back in. The scene with Dr. Connors and Peter talking to each other about what they've lost will be kept. All of it will be kept in the film. And overall, yeah, it'll all be kept in the film. And another thing is that the Daily Bugle will indeed have a role in this film. At the start, they would be more on the side of Spider-Man, believing that his vigilantism is much more of what the city needs than the whole shtick with the police. But J. Jonah Jameson, believing now that he's partially in the cause for the Lizard drama and believing that he interrupted in the police doing their job, now starts to go side more with the police and believing that Spider-Man is a menace and starts calling him a threat and a menace to society. Now that starts a legendary thing. The Daily Bugle is only brought up by name and referenced. The J. Jonah Jameson, Brady Bram do not at all make an appearance in the films yet. That'll be for a later day. Now, nonetheless, that is so far what I've seen have in the film. Besides that, Gwen Stacy and Peter will indeed stay together. Since Captain Stacy does not die, Peter and Gwen would then stay together in the film. And what else are you asking about that? Oh yeah, the Uncle Ben plotline that went absolutely nowhere. Now, realistically, yes, would Peter have ever caught the bad guy? Likely no. But eventually, the carjacker that Peter thwips around and just becomes a complete a-hole to, Peter ends up finding out who it is because he webs him after trying to escape. He then, after distracting him with a knife, he whips him to the wall, and then realizing who he is, he starts punching him and kicking him in the stomach and punching him in the balls and then hit him in the face. And then after that, he reveals to the crook who he is. After that, well, then he slams him up to the wall and then whips him again. And right as he's about to keep on beating him by pinning him down and hearing him scream more, he hears a cop come by and then puts his mask back on and then whips it up so he can pops holes where he webbed his mouth so he can breathe. And then obviously the escape scene that Peter does plays out the same when he escapes from the police. And yeah, and pretty much that is it for the film, and yeah. Pretty much that is what the Amazing Spider-Man 1 rewrite was going to be. And besides that, that's pretty much what my rewrite would be if I could rewrite the Amazing Spider-Man film. Now that's a recap. It's like my Transformers Dark of the Moon recap. I recap the movie so then I can prepare you guys for my rewrites. Now, yes, I'm indeed in the process of rewriting Transformers 4 and then writing 2 spin-off movies for Transformers, and besides that, yeah. But now, with that finished, I want to give you another little rewrite that ties in after the events of The Amazing Spider-Man, leading all the way into TASM 2. So straight after the events of The Amazing Spider-Man, there'll be in my vision, there'll be a Christmas event, like book or movie, short film, however you want to imagine in your head. In the short story, it is now Christmas of 2012, and Peter is still grieving a bit over the death of Uncle Ben, as this is now the first Christmas without Uncle Ben, and Peter really gets to realize what has now happened now that Uncle Ben's gone. He's accepted his death, but he's still just a few things will pop up, because realistically, even though someone dies, you never truly get over them being gone. And Uncle Ben never says with great power comes great responsibility. He does eventually, but only in the voicemail, and so does his father. But with that, yeah, pretty much he would learn another lesson in here to savor the time he has with those he loves. And we will get hints that stuff like the Fantastic Four and that do indeed exist. Reed Richards is indeed mentioned in this world. Reed Richards would indeed be referenced in the world of the Amazing Spider-Man, not the Fantastic Four. Reed Richards, and Johnny Blaze will also be another reference as he is playing on television. And yes, I do a bunch of little references to characters from other Marvel characters just to hint at them, in my opinion, because it's a rewrite. I didn't exactly have all the whole Lego mumbo jumbo that Sony has to go through. But I added them in because, well, they're just references, and Marvel wouldn't have minded even if it was a real movie anyway, or book. Over the course of the book, Peter and Gwen learn more about their love for each other. Peter's still trying to find a way to balance his relationship with Captain Stacy. Him and Captain Stacy haven't exactly gotten along, so Peter and Captain Stacy are still trying to find a balance within that relationship they have, and they're just trying to find a way they can balance all that is just happening, and they're trying to balance all that with so much. And with that, yeah, that's what they try to do in this little sequel series thing that ends 2012 and merges into 2010. The next story is The Amazing Spider-Man: The Hunt, or The Fun of the Hunt, or whatever you want to call it. This is a film that was actually meant to happen with the Amazing Spider-Man cinematic universe, but never happened. This film would be set in Peter's senior year. This is now his last year in high school, and now this is set before the events of the Amazing Spider-Man 1 game. This is where Peter meets Kraven the Hunter for the very first time after his origin story in the Kraven the Hunter film with Aaron Taylor Johnson. Now, my version, if I did the Kraven the Hunter film, at first Kraven would be an animal lover, believing that the natural world should be left as it is, but over time, going from a hero, he soon goes from a war hero and starts wanting to hunt them, and after animal kills his mother and father, he decides to start killing animals, and by the end of the film, pretty much becomes the Hunter, Kraven the Hunter, one of the most feared hunters in the world, and dresses like his classic comic book self, but eventually upgrades himself to be more tactical weapons gear by the Amazing Spider-Man Fun of the Hunt film. In this movie, well, people are trying to take down Spider-Man, but they don't know how. So one of the crime bosses, Kingpin, who only gets teased, pretty much tries to hire Kraven the Hunter to go find him. That and Kraven the Hunter's been trying to find out that if he's the ultimate hunter. So he targets Spider-Man, and while he's targeting him, he's also found out by one of the crime bosses, being actually teased to be a very big man of crime. Kraven takes the job and ends up trying to hunt Spider-Man. Now, it's a spin-off set a year after The Amazing Spider-Man and 1 year before TASM 2. And Peter's in high school. He's more relaxed. He's a bit more of he's keeping his identity a bit more secret. But besides that, yeah. Kraven the Hunter, at first he tries to teach him how to be a better Spider-Man and allies with him, but eventually Kraven had no intention of being friends with him and eventually betrays him and tries to kill him. And then eventually tries to improve his skills as a hero to see if there's any potential ideas he can take from him or give to him, and then thinks, well, since there's nothing left with him, I might as well kill him, and then decides to kill him. But Spidey ends up beating him in the fight, taking him down, and then it sets up very much more sinister stuff when Mr. Fierce ends up coming to see him in his jail cell, and Calypso, his wife, or whoever his wife is. With that, that'd be the Amazing Spider-Man 1 recap and the Amazing Spider-Man: The Fun of the Hunt. Now, these are two little things that are set in between the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, and after this Fun of the Hunt film, we then get the Amazing Spider-Man 1 game, which would have pretty much the same story as the actual game, but it'd be still more grounded. In the game, Peter takes on the spider slayers, which are like quite normal sized robots. They're like the size of a monster truck to keep them realistic to the universe. They go and destroy and take down, and a bunch of guys get told to go destroy and take down all these amount of things and lead to a bunch of attacks where some of the mechs that they made and serums they made start going wild on the animals they experimented on and start breaking out. And eventually, yeah, these animals are all ended up taken down. Some of them were indeed killed by Kraven the Hunter, who indeed does escape, but then kills some of the animals, and some of their blood is taken from Oscorp to put into suits and mechanized weapons they have planned to make. And Spencer Smith is indeed still appearing in the game and still dies. His son Alistair Smith actually starts working at the company, but his hair was orange, but he dies at black. He permanently dies at black to honor his dad's death. With that, Alistair Smith starts working at at Oscorp, and we would see him appear in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, who is one of Max's senior employees. Max Dillon doesn't even make him get a name mention in the game. Peter and Gwen are still a loving couple and still stay deeply in love. We would see Peter and Captain Stacy become more of a good duo after trying to find a balance of Peter trying to find a balance with Captain Stacy, who then finally have a better relationship with them in The Fun of the Hunt and The Amazing Spider-Man 1 game and grow closer, but Peter would still hide that he's Spider-Man from him. And in general, yeah. The Daily Bugle makes another appearance as Peter at the end of the Fun of the Hunt film gets a job at the Daily Bugle to work there to basically save enough money so they can still live in the house. Because, well, yeah. Because, well, Aunt May had not really given much clearance by the book. We then find out by the ending of the Christmas event, we find out that, well, they've been hard on money now. Now that Ben's gone, and, well, yeah. Now things are starting to happen. May does nearly get scammed from people who were. It was a nice package bed set that Ben had ordered from May, but they didn't get to deliver it. And these scammers who were going to take advantage of her, Peter tracks them down and takes down their criminal empire. And pretty much, yeah. And that's during the Amazing Spider-Man Christmas novel or Christmas event or whatever. But yeah. In the Amazing Spider-Man game, besides those changes I already made, like the whole Spencer Smith idea and all that, and the Max Dillon name reference, and more about Captain Stacy and Peter's relationship, it's pretty much the same game. And then after that is another Spider-Man game, which is the Amazing Spider-Man 2 game. Now, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 game is a time movie game, but it had two different plot lines. A crime boss plot line, and an Electro main and the film's plot. They didn't really go cohesively well together, so it split them up entirely into their own thing. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 game is mainly focused on the crime plot line, closes up every plot hole from the last game of all the creatures that escaped from the last game out in the world, and solves the plot holes of how they were taken down and all that. And we see mechs getting made for the villains of the Spider-Man world. A few of them as Rhino's one of them. We see teasers as prototype armors of that. We're hearing more about Norman Osborn and teasers into the next film. And we see Peter and Gwen's relationship expand even more, along with the fact that they're now nearly graduating. It's this game still set in mid to late 2013. And Kingpin is the big villain of it. He still partners with Oscorp and does have plans to try and, basically try and get him off the map by killing him, and invents a few technology and gear to try and keep that. The Daily Bugle is still against Spider-Man and still tries to just still hates Spider-Man, and now tries their best to try and make him look bad in the media. Now, it does start working, but after the events of the most recent game, people start morally siding with Spider-Man due to his heroic acts in the film and games. And yeah, and that's how that would all lead into The Amazing Spider-Man 2, my rewrite of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. After that, well, who knows? I am still planning on rewrites for The Amazing Spider-Man 3, and maybe, I don't know, I'll let you guys decide. Should I connect The Amazing Spider-Man films to the Venomverse? I'll let you guys decide that in the comments down below. Nonetheless, that will be this video. The next video will indeed be talking about The Amazing Spider-Man 2 rewrite I have planned, and then The Amazing Spider-Man 3 rewrite. I have amazing plans, really amazing plans for the second and third film. Pun intended. And I hope you guys enjoy what I have planned for them. And very much, yes, you guys have a very good day, guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, and enjoy the video. I've tried to talk as slow as I can so you can understand me. And share the video with your family and friends. And I hope you enjoy your days, everybody. Now, since it's my school holidays and school turn's been let out, I'll find the scripts for my past videos and upload them. So there'll be reviews on all 3 Bad Boys films. All 3 of the Bad Boys movies so far will be ranked. A review on Top Gun Maverick will be made, because I really did quite like that one. You'll be seeing a ranking on all the Phase 4 films, and then a full-on Phase 4 ranking, and then ranking of all of the MCU films, except for the Disney Plus shows. Those will be left on their own thing. Nonetheless, with that, you guys, have a very good day, and I'll see you guys next time, and this is Movie Master, signing off.